Hey, everybody. Welcome to FreightWaves Today. Excited to have you. This is a brand new show, Julie. Super excited. Welcome. This is your brand new TV audition. How do you feel?
I know. I'm excited. I'm really excited. So yeah, thank you and welcome to FreightWaves Today. This is our premiere episode. We're live at noon Eastern every weekday, and we'll have everything you need to know about what's moving the freight market. So let's get into it. Today, I'm joined by Craig Fuller, the one and only founder and CEO of both FreightWaves and SONAR. So let's get your opening thoughts, Craig.
Well, look, I'm real excited to have you here. This has been something that we've been talking about for some time, Julie. Like, just bringing the audience in, bringing the top C-level executives across the industry to really hear it. You have to forgive us. We actually have a brand new studio coming. Semiconductor shortage, I think all these GPUs building out data centers has slowed our ability to build out this brand new studio. But over the next couple of weeks, we're going to be a brand new studio. We have a brand new desk coming in that's custom. Super excited about the experience. But what I'm most interested in is bringing in the top level executives across the space that really are going to bring amazing thought leadership and share their ideas. We've got an amazing lineup today, Julie. I cannot wait.
Yeah, so we have coast-to-coast guests on today's show. First, we have the president and COO of SD's Express line, fourth-generation logistics leadership. The freight industry is literally in his blood, and he's here to share it. Then, fraud. It's hitting our industry at epidemic levels. A leading expert from Highway tells us all about how to keep business safe in the age of AI. And then next, we'll have Shelley Simpson, president and CEO of JB Hunt Transport Services. One of the most powerful executives in the freight industry joins us live. And later, Gene Soroka, executive director and the busiest container port in North America. We'll talk tariffs, trade, and what's next. So you don't want to miss it. It's a big show. Let's go. But before we get into it, I do want to make sure that we mention we want to hear what you're thinking. We'll be monitoring X at hashtag FW Today. So send us your hot takes and any burning questions. And we're going to have Malcolm live to be able to monitor the feed and give us some updates on what's happening. And we'll pop to him a little later and get Craig's take on what's happening on X and what's going on out there with you guys. So again, hashtag FW Today. Send us your thoughts, any burning questions, what your hot takes are, and we'll make sure we get to them before the show ends.
Well, Julie, this is a really exciting time. I mean, so much is happening right now. I think it's absolutely kind of ripping. I mean, one of the absolute most interesting things is what's happening around rates.
Yeah, rates. Listen, I'm a rate nerd, that's my background, and they have been so incredibly fun to watch over the last few months. And certainly we love either side of the market, a shipper market or a broker market, but we absolutely are excited to see it turn in the favor of the carriers a little bit. I am personally a trucker at heart, so.
Yeah, I mean, look, spot rates, NTID that's the daily rate, hit an all-time record. We've not seen that. It's the first time that we've seen that level of rate, so it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and we're going to dig into that a little bit more in the SONAR data of the day. But in the meantime, we want to keep you abreast and aware of what's happening in the news, so we'll get to the headlines. We're keeping an eye on all the news that is freight. A new player hits Wall Street this morning. FedEx Freight begins trading as an independent company, splitting off from its parent after decades under the FedEx umbrella. The largest LTL carrier in America is now on its own, and the market is watching. UPS spending $50 million to crack open a new frontier. Starting in August, the shipping giant will fly its own aircraft on time-definite heavy freight routes between the United States and Mexico for the first time ever. Washington is back in session, and fuel prices are front and center. Congress returned from Memorial Day recess today, with rising gas prices driving a partisan fight over affordability. For the trucking industry, there's also $580 billion in infrastructure funding on the table, including new truck parking grants along major freight corridors. Freight is moving, and so are we. So let's get into the show.
Well, Julie, this is a really exciting time. So much is happening. It's really pretty incredible what we're seeing right now.
Yeah, so coming up, we're going to be talking a little bit more about SONAR. So the freshest SONAR data driving the market right now, and one of the longest legacies in the freight history. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
industry is at an inflection point. The next decade starts now. Reshoring is rewriting freight demand. Technology is redefining what a railroad can do. Will you lead the charge or scramble to catch up? Join C-suite executives, government regulators, and rail shippers at the Future of Rail Symposium to discover how rail networks will compete and win over the next 10 years. Hear from STB Chairman Patrick Fuchs and FreightWaves experts such as Craig Fuller, JP Hampstead, and more. The Signal in Chattanooga, Tennessee, July 28th, 2026. Space is limited. Secure your seat today. Register at live.freightwaves.com.
Imagine a world where your freight moves as fast as a digital pulse. What if your visibility didn't just tell you where a truck was, but exactly where it needed to be 48 hours from now? Think of a logistics network that corrects its own mistakes before they cost you a single dime. What if your supply chain could think for itself? Imagine AI agents negotiating rates in milliseconds, predictive models that solve labor shortages before they even happen. This isn't science fiction, it's the agenda. On July 15th at the historic Old Post Office in Chicago, FreightWaves presents the Supply Chain AI Symposium. We are defining in real time how AI is embedded into every mile, every warehouse, and every handshake. Because in 2026, the future isn't just coming, it's already negotiating. The FreightWaves Supply Chain AI Symposium. Secure your spot now.
What's the masterclass all about? Well, here's what I'm going to tell you. If you're a driver, you're an owner-operator, you're a fleet owner, whether you're in compliance services, dispatcher, no matter what it is, masterclass is for you. Every 2 weeks, you're going to sit down with me and we're going to go over certain business topics that are related specifically to your small trucking company operations. We're going to help you with everything from compliance to how to negotiate better on the spot board, how to find direct freight, and everything in between. This is the reason why you don't want to miss out on Masterclass. It's about an hour to an hour and a half, and then on top of that, you'll have the library to you so that way you can always research and reflect back onto it. Don't miss out this opportunity. This is built specifically for you. I'm excited and I hope to see you in class.
The map is changing. As global uncertainties rise, the future of the supply chain is moving closer to home. Welcome to the new coast-to-coast North American network. Driven by massive reshoring trends and next-gen industrial innovation, optimized by AI workflows that build unshakable operational resilience, and locked down by proactive security against evolving freight fraud. Are you ready to navigate the shift? Join the industry's top minds to build the future. The FreightWaves Domestic Supply Chain Summit, streaming live June 17th. Register for free at live.freightwaves.com.
The super successful people are part of the 1%. They're part of that very, very small percentage. That's why I don't want you to do things that everybody's doing. I want you to do the small things that nobody else is doing. The people that are most successful in this business treat it like it's the only thing that's bringing income into their household. If you do that, then you'll have the same results. These people operate like they have no other chance. They have nothing else going. This is the only breadwinner that they have in play. I'm Adam Wingfield, and this is the FreightWaves Playbook. Become part of the 1%. Sign up for FreightWaves Playbook today.
Hey, Julia, crazy times right now here in the freight market. Just seeing what's happening, so much is really going on. This is absolutely crazy right now.
Yeah, I think let's talk. We talked a bit before, but let's get into the SONAR data and look at our NTI and NTID and look at spot rates and how they are hitting sort of all-time highs. I know you tweeted a little bit about it last night or early this morning, but the daily, oh yeah, there we go, we've got it. The daily spot rate has reached an all-time high of 5. What is it, Craig? Do you know?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think at the end of the day, what we're talking about is absolute record conditions in the market. This is really one of the most insane markets that we've seen. The fact that we are hitting super high spot rates at a time where the market, actually fuel is cooling. So one of the really interesting developments is the fact that fuel, the prices are cooling as we get some resolution to Hormuz. We've looked at the price of diesel coming down. That's been one of the most remarkable developments. One of the counter arguments that we've had to folks that looking at the market is that this is all fuel related. That is not the case at all. In fact, what you can tell is just frankly how bullish the freight spot market is when you look at the data. And that is despite the fact the price of fuel is coming down. And we should go look actually at wholesale fuel prices, because I think one of the really interesting things is that trucking companies that are tied to fuel surcharges are benefiting from having cheaper fuel prices come down. There's been a significant savings in terms of fuel cost. That has reduced a lot of the fuel costs for carriers, but they're building out fuel surcharges connected to resale fuel prices.
Yeah, so if we talk about fuels.usa, which is our retail to wholesale fuel spread, obviously it's been up and down over as all of the, I guess, geopolitical distress, unrest has happened and the disruptions there. But it is peaking up again. And you think that is because fuel is falling and retail is falling faster than wholesale?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, the truck stops have a tendency to respond and increase the price of fuel really aggressively when the market is heating up. And then they have a tendency to, as the fuel price goes down, they have a tendency to reduce that slowly. So there's this weird thing where they'll say, hey, we buy all this fuel. It's expensive when we buy it because we buy it a couple weeks out, but they have no problem increasing the price of fuel very on the front end of fuel prices. But as fuel cools off, they are very slow and reluctant to take those prices out.
Yeah, I think fuel as a whole is a really interesting story that we can keep thinking about and looking into. There are lots of other metrics we could pull as well. I think we talked a little bit about the diesel truck stop price, and that while there's a large spread between wholesale and retail, the DTS, our DTS USA, I mean, you can see the huge spike as the geopolitical disruptions.
Yeah, I mean, Mark, look at that spike. But I think one of the interesting things is that fuel prices are coming down. We've lost about, when you look at the total price of fuel, it's off about 11 cents a mile over the last couple of months, or really since it sort of peaked. And that's providing relief for carriers.
Yeah, and I also think, to me, the interesting play here is we showed the daily and the as well as the line haul spot rates, and there's a lot of conversation on X and everywhere about fuel and how it is such a driver in the market and what's happening in spot rates, and certainly it is a cost driver for carriers. But I think we've really seen the market hold up well, in that in our spot rate index, you're able to see that carriers have been able to recover that fuel cost, and in a down market, even if the cost of fuel is high, you just can't. Well,
ultimately, this is all about clearing price, because NTI is about what the price that shippers and carriers are willing to pay.
Yeah.
I mean, shippers and brokers are having to pay for trucks. And ultimately, it's about what that price is really the clearing price. So when we look at it, we're looking at the gross price of spot rates. That's what matters. And then ultimately look at margins, you look at the offset of fuel.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you, Craig, for the SONAR update. And thanks to all of our partners that are on the carousel at the bottom of your screen supporting the show, with a special shout out to our friends at Samsara for making this show happen. It's National Safety Month, which makes this a great time to ask how your fleet can prevent more accidents. Samsara AI detects risk in real time, giving teams more visibility into what's happening on the road and more content to coach drivers before risky movements become incidents. Fleets using Samsara Complete AI Safety Solution have reduced crash rates by nearly 75%. See the data behind the results in the Samsara Safety Report at samsara.com/FreightWaves. And speaking of AI, we've got the AI Symposium coming up July 15th in Chicago. This high-impact symposium on the real-world application of AI in global supply chains covers seed stage founders to global enterprise providers. We're gathering the entire supply chain ecosystem under one roof to explore how artificial intelligence is being embedded into every mile of the supply chain. All right, great. So next we have our first guest, Webb Estes. While much of the trucking industry spent the last few years grinding through a brutal downturn, one company didn't just survive, it thrived. Estes Express Lines just had the best operational year in their 94-year history. Record on-time service, lowest claims ratio ever, and one of the biggest network expansions in the industry. Please welcome President and COO, Webb Estes.
Hey, Webb, how are
Hey,
you?
Julie. Oh, hey, Craig. Thanks. Thanks for having me. And boy, to be the first guest on a really cool show. I love FreightWaves. You guys have brought so much great energy and wisdom to this industry. So thanks for letting me be a part of it.
Well, we've got a lot of work to do. We're technical. This is the first show, so you're getting to see it live with all of its rivets. It's like a load. When you get a transaction with your most important customer, it inevitably goes wrong. So we apologize for all the technical stuff. We've got some timing stuff that we've got to work on. But really excited. You are our first guest.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And Julie, yeah, you hit on it well. I mean, it's been a whirlwind these last few years, but breaking the record on-time service and lowest claims and best load factor that we had in my 19 years at Estes was quite the surprise, but it was intentional and it was strategic. Can I give you one story that I just love? So Freight, they're brown boxes, and so many of our employees, you just see it, and it's how many brown boxes can you see a day? And so last year we put an initiative together on loving freight, and I went a little kooky and made our people have to hug a pallet. So I'd encourage Julie, you and Craig, you guys should hug a pallet too, but kind of recognizing that every shipment matters for our customer. And so we have our employees hugging the pallets and hearing the stories about why that shipment matters. So it's been a really great story. And what I hear from our employees is, wow, I knew I moved 100 pallets a night, but I didn't know that this story changed the lives of this person or this customer. So kind of getting the why question answered has been one of the big things that drove us this past year on improving quality.
Yeah, that's so cool. And we've gotten a chance to speak a little bit prior, and I know that you really put a large emphasis on your people and the culture of your company and doing the right thing and making decisions based on those people versus maybe what you think might be most short-term profitable. Or being private is amazing to not have to worry about quarterly earnings and make long-term smart decisions. So can you tell us a little bit more about the culture at your organization and maybe share some stories there?
Sure. Culture is something that takes years to build. I often say that I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. My granddad and great-granddad are pictured behind me, and they were the ones that started this culture that we built. But every day, it means putting your people first and letting them know that they're the ones that make the difference with customers. Julie, one story that comes to mind in April of 2020, when COVID was a real well, where is this world going? What's the business going to be? We sat in this boardroom with my dad and my sister, and we made the decision that we weren't going to lay anybody off. Instead, we were going to offer interest-free loans to our people because everyone was struggling to pay their bills and figure out a way to get through it. You always talk about culture until the tires hit the road and you got to figure out who are you when you grow up. And I've been proud to be a part of an organization that says our people matter and we're going to do whatever it takes to take care of them. And when we do that, it allows us to grow and allows them to get excited about taking care of the customer.
Right. Webb, I've got to ask, the market is insane right now, at least on the truckload side, but are you guys seeing the same impact in the LTL business?
I would say that it's come later for us, but yes, last week was a record for us. We were up maybe 7.5% tonnage last week, which is a big number. And especially when I consider just 2 months ago, we were pretty flat as a company. So yeah, it's coming. And I don't know all the intricacies of what's causing it. Obviously, we've seen, CDLs being removed from different states. We've the Supreme Court ruling, I don't know all of the impacts if maybe customers are trying to pick carriers that have bigger umbrella policies and good safety records, which Estes is really proud of our safety record. But we are seeing it tick up. It is a very different industry than even 3 months ago. And I think it's a good thing for trucking. I know we've been talking about it for 3 years, but to finally see it coming to fruition, it's a big deal, and it's hard to find capacity right now.
Is there certain commodities that you're seeing really move right now?
I mean, I think what has surprised me is that retail hasn't struggled. I would have expected retail with oil prices and just the price of things to go up, that maybe retail would struggle. And the whole story about manufacturing being stronger, I would have gotten that one. But we're seeing both retail and manufacturing be strong. So no, I saw a story this morning from one of the Family Dollar that, it's a good business for them too. So, I mean, people still need things. Maybe the consumer is being a little more selective, but boy, we see it across the board that things are strong right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the things we've talked about is the fact that AI data centers are sort of driving this reindustrialization. It also looks like military, defense, and energy. What other commodities are you seeing that are really driving the market?
Man, I mean, we're seeing grocery for us. I guess we joke around here that no matter what happens, people need to eat. And we like to eat around here too. So we've definitely seen grocery do stuff. Yeah, I mean, all those sectors play in. For us, the data center hasn't been as big of a move yet. I mean, we're the less than truckload industry. So there's not a whole, right now they're building them. So it's more construction than data center movements. But we are seeing some good movement in the construction industry as well. And we need that. Housing has struggled the last few years. So we're trying to hopefully see a revitalization in our building part of the industry too.
Now, has this year surprised you? Because I think a lot of folks came into, obviously the truckload capacity situation has been pretty substantial. We all know that the compliance crackdown is having a real impact, mostly in truckload. LTL carriers were not, we'll say, take advantage maybe on their brokerage operations, but certainly not bringing on drivers that had non-domiciled CDLs. In fact, that's true of even the largest truckload carriers. We're not really playing in that market. But are you really surprised by call it the robustness of this year?
I am surprised. I think we've been hearing truckload was going to get tighter for, I don't mean 2 years now, maybe, right? And it just felt like optimism more than truth. So I am surprised. So I think it's important to know LTL, we're the meat of a sandwich. And we're the smallest sector, right? You've got, on the small side, you've got Amazon, FedEx, UPS, Post Office kind of handling the shipments under 100 pounds. And then the biggest one is the large truckload carriers. And they handle 8, 10, 12,000 pounds and up shipments. And so for the last 3 years, those bigger shipments have always gone to truckload because truckload was so desperate for the business. And so we're kind of in this middle ground where everyone was trying to lean into the LTL and take it. And so the struggle for LTL carriers is that we don't know how to say no. When a customer calls, we just go pick it up. And so as truckload has started to tighten, they're pulling away from those 8, 10,000 pound shipments. And you think about it, those are big shipments for an LTL company. You start seeing your weight per shipment grow, and you can run out of line haul capacity pretty quickly. So it makes sense. Like, none of this is surprising when I see what's really happening in truckload at this point. But boy, I didn't expect it to happen so quickly or at the pace that it's happened this year.
Yeah, so it seems like we bounced crazy in terms of this year. I don't think anyone really saw that, Julie.
Yeah, I think we've all been surprised by how quickly everything shifted and changed. And I think you're absolutely right that LTL sees those even bigger swings, right? Because you lose more volume and then even more volume comes back. So what are some key ways you guys are dealing with that? And you mentioned before your line haul capacity can fill up very fast, very quickly. So how does that decision-making process happen? How do you guys use data or other things to ensure that you are choosing the best loads or the best pallets to fill up that available capacity you have?
Sure. It's I I'd love to say it's 100% science. It's probably a mix of art and science. But we use technology. We use Optum for a lot of our load planning. So, one of the nice things is when you have more business, you should be able to build more direct loads across the network. And so we've had a huge focus in our load factor and doing that. I'll tell you one of the other things that I look like a genius today. I mean, when Yellow went out of business, we bought 52 of their terminals for $490 million. And I didn't expect how much those terminals were going to need in repairs. So we've spent another 120, 130 million getting those facilities up to specs. But it's been really great to see now that we've got these terminals in place. As you grow, you have the ability to load more directs. You have abilities to load more head loads. So the real challenge and opportunity for LTL is as you grow, how can you cut out the extra handlings? How can you build more directs where you cut out your line haul miles? So that's the challenge. But our load factor broke every record last week as well. So we're loading better than we ever have, and that means good stuff. Yeah.
I mean, it's a sign that you talked about being a genius, but then you talked about all the CapEx that takes place to repair. I mean, Yellow was a bottom feeder. I mean, rest in peace, Yellow. As a historian trucker, I'm always sad to lose a company like that because it had such this great story. I know you're not sad about it because it has changed this market and you guys have benefited from it. But when you talk about being right there at the right place, right time, what exactly did that look like for you guys?
Yeah, so I've been to Estes 19 years and worked in a terminal, drove a truck, ran a terminal. And so for a long period of time, I had been pushing our team to add more facilities, build. And it took me about 4 years to realize that very few communities are like, yay, LTL trucking terminal. That's what we want there. And so feeling the pain of that for several years, when the Yellow opportunity presented itself, this was kind of a get out of jail free card, right? This was like wow, like I can just turn the key and have these opportunities right in front of us. And so now I realize that I'm in a very unique position, right? We're debt free, we're privately held. I love trucking. I plan on doing this for another 30 years. And so all of my decisions and our team's decisions are, what can we do that's going to prepare us for the next 95 years at Estes? And so, it was a no-brainer, right? We had, I would have loved all the terminals, but you have to kind of pick your moments. But we paid a pretty penny for it. But what it's allowed us to do is take care of our people and take care of our customers. And being privately held allows us to do that. I mean, I don't have to make a decision to hit a quarterly goal. I don't even know when our quarters end, right? Like for us, the focus is how can I put us in a better position 3 years from now? And so when it happened, I'll give you a quick example real quick. We also bought 7,000 Yellow trailers. And honestly, it was the one thing I wouldn't tell FreightWaves or anybody because I was getting such a good deal. I didn't want anyone to know. So we bought 7,000 trailers. The average pup, which is a shorter trailer, we bought it for $5,000 and they were average age of 3 years. And a new pup today is $40,000. So I figure we saved about $230 million by basically being willing to say yes, even though we didn't need them that day. We knew we were going to need them soon. And so dreaming and thinking, how can you just take a step forward? Now for the next 18 years, I'm going to save about $12 million on my P&L. Because of those trailers being in our fleet. So it's been a good thing.
What are you seeing in terms of yield? How are yields working? I mean, Yellow, the last time we had a peak market during COVID, Yellow was still a market participant, and they were reputable, their reputation, I should say, is sort of the lower end of the market. They were known as a bottom feeder, sort of feeding off the bottom, creating pressure for the other LTL guys because you all have to compete against the folks at the bottom of the market. They're no longer in the market. How is that helping you guys gain and yield? Yeah,
so the thing I'll call about Yellow first, I just want to say, I mean, there were 30,000 teammates there that lost jobs. And so I know you said we were rooting, it was good for us. It was good for the LTL industry, but I do want to call out, we've hired some of the, I mean, like it's a hard place. It's a hard story to start from. What what it did do is there's a supply and demand, and it did take a lot of capacity out of the space. So at Estes, we've been named the top value carrier from Mastio the last 4 years, the top value national carrier. And there are days when I wish Estes, like our focus was, we're just going to be the most expensive, but every shipment is like perfect, right? Or we're just going to be super cheap. And I wish that sometimes I was like, that'd be the easiest way to sell a customer. This is exactly what you get. But what we have really strived to do is how can we bring value to every shipment in our system? And so what that means is how do you take out all the inefficiencies, but also do something that's going to provide value to the customer? And so, yeah, I mean, sure, there are carriers that probably provide different levels of service and price, but I mean, we're up 18% tonnage over the last 3 years, up more tonnage than any of the public national carriers out there. And so for us, we believe that when we grow, it's a good thing for our customers because now we can build more directs, but it's also a great thing for your people. And when your people are winning freight and finding new opportunities to go to our driving schools or become full-time or all the things, like so many good things happen when you're growing. So for us, sure, you look at the economy and you look at price and you try and find like where you can bring value. But for us, it's been fun to grow and look long term and not just how do I make more money this quarter? No, it's how do you take care of your customers because you want them to be with you for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really important thing. I got to ask because AI is obviously taking the storm. The public markets are absolutely ripping. We've talked about the impact in freight and certainly on the flatbed operators, how much that's impacting the market. But as it relates to what you guys are doing specifically around AI and automation, I would love to hear it. You've got some participation in Venture 53. There's some connection there. At least a lot of your former executives are there. What is your thoughts around technology and automation?
Sure. So, I mean, technology is one of those things that 15 years ago, like when I was starting working in the IT group, I was always worried that the big guys, the FedExes and the UPSs, were going to run away with this technology thing, right? And I was always scared. Then I woke up one day and we have the second most tonnage in the industry. And so I started realizing, hey, maybe we're a little bigger. And so we have taken a different stance the last 5 years to say, we're actually going to push the industry forward. We want to, what can we do that no one's done before so we can wow our customers? So for example, if you get a rate quote on our website, we'll tell you what our on-time service was for, in that lane. Right? So we're trying to say, hey, how can we be open? How can we be honest? How can we connect to our customers further? So some of that is just other tech things. We'd obviously work with P44 and SMC and all the integrators to try and create more information like pickup visibility and ETAs at stops and all those types of things. But you asked AI. Yes, we're using AI for lots of stuff. Honestly, right now, it's a trial thing. Like we're like, how many things can we try? What can make it, how can we find a nugget of doing something faster? The other thing we've done, I'm sure this is a terrible public strategy, but being private, we've said, hey, what are the things that we've never done because it was too cost prohibitive? Like you'd have to add people. And so what we decided to do was, what are things like, hey, can we call and make sure a shipment's ready? So we don't have to have drivers do that. So we're actually spending a lot of our AI resources on the things we haven't been able to do before that really make a better experience for the customer. And I'm sure we'll get into the cost saving things, but for right now, we've enjoyed trying to wow and think differently about what we can do.
That's amazing, and thank you. And it's so cool that you guys are using data and that open and honest communication and transparency with your customers. So President and COO of Estes Express, Webb Estes, thank you for joining us for our first episode of FreightWaves Today, and we hope to have you back soon.
And our first guest. I mean, not only first episode, yeah. Webb, that first dollar bill, we need to have like an inaugural dollar bill or inaugural truck, I guess.
I will find a dollar bill and send it to you. I'm honored that you guys let me be a part of this. Thank you for all you're doing, and I look forward to tuning in every day.
We can hug a pallet. If we did have a pallet, we could hug it. That's what we need to do here. Send us a pallet. We need an Estes pallet that we can put here on set to represent. We'll hug it every morning.
I will do that.
Thank you
guys so much.
Appreciate it, Webb. Thank you.
All right, up next, freight fraud is exploding. So how do you stop it? An expert from Highway joins us with some answers.
The rail industry is at an inflection point. The next decade starts now. Reshoring is rewriting freight demand. Technology is redefining what a railroad can do. Will you lead the charge or scramble to catch up? Join C-suite executives, government regulators, and rail shippers at the Future of Rail Symposium to discover how rail networks will compete and win over the next 10 years. Hear from STB Chairman Patrick Fuchs and FreightWaves experts such as Craig Fuller, JP Hampstead, and more. The Signal in Chattanooga, Tennessee, July 28th, 2026. Space is limited. Secure your seat today. Register at live.freightwaves.com.
What's the masterclass all about? Well, here's what I'm going to tell you. If you're a driver, you're an owner-operator, you're a fleet owner, whether you're in compliance services, dispatcher, no matter what it is, masterclass is for you. Every 2 weeks, you're going to sit down with me and we're going to go over certain business topics that are related specifically to your small trucking company operations. We're going to help you with everything from compliance to how to negotiate better on the spot board, how to find direct freight, and everything in between. This is the reason why you don't want to miss out on Masterclass. It's about an hour to an hour and a half, and then on top of that, you'll have the library to you so that way you can always research and reflect back onto it. Don't miss out this opportunity. This is built specifically for you. I'm excited and I hope to see you in class.
Imagine a world where your freight moves as fast as a digital pulse. What if your visibility didn't just tell you where a truck was, but exactly where it needed to be 48 hours from now? Think of a logistics network that corrects its own mistakes before they cost you a single dime. What if your supply chain could think for itself? Imagine AI agents negotiating rates in milliseconds, predictive models that solve labor shortages before they even happen. This isn't science fiction, it's the agenda. On July 15th at the historic Old Post Office in Chicago, FreightWaves presents the Supply Chain AI Symposium. We are defining in real time how AI is embedded into every mile, every warehouse, and every handshake. Because in 2026, the future isn't just coming, it's already negotiating. The FreightWaves Supply Chain AI Symposium. Secure your spot now.
All right, joining us now is a 20-year veteran of the freight and logistics industry. He serves as the Chief Commercial Officer at Highway, the leading freight tech company solving one of trucking's most urgent problems, carrier identity and freight fraud. Please welcome Michael Caney.
Hey, welcome. You're welcome. You're a Chattanoogan.
That's right.
So this is right in the middle of Freight Alley.
That's
Excited
right.
to have you. Our first guest in the studio.
That's right.
So we had Webb just a few minutes ago. Got to ask about fraud. I mean, this is on the mind of everybody right now, especially I think the carrier identity fraud is sort of tied into what we saw in Montgomery and SCOTUS.
Yeah.
How are you guys? What are customers saying right now?
I mean, the interesting thing about customer feedback is there's a lot of people that like the playbooks, like, oh, we do a pretty good job. We're not going to change anything. But hey, what ideas do you have? Like, there's a little bit of that. But you can make a case that carriers that want to steal things and sell MCs, probably not the safest carriers on the road. And so a lot of customers are really, we're seeing a drop in overrides where customers are willing to make exceptions. And we're seeing a major uptick in the enforcement of the limited term CDL rule.
Now, it was news this weekend, C.H. Robinson is starting to call some of its motor carriers that were, perhaps didn't have the highest safety scores. I think there's a lot of questions as to what their standards are. They haven't disclosed them.
That's right.
We've derived that it has to do with safety scores, but there seems to be some other sort of signals for C.H. Robinson. What are you hearing from customers in terms of how they're thinking about?
I mean, customers are trying to ask the question, right? So they're looking at resources like Blue Wire. We have...
what is Blue Wire, by the way?
Blue Wire is a service that we integrate with that specifically focuses on safety. They specifically go out and create a score based on cohorts, right? So hey, this is this carrier, and this is how they compare against other carriers in their cohort, and they give them a number grade, 60, 70, whatever. And so some people like John Ferguson, who's you've been interacting with on X, are trying to use that as a baseline. Other customers are trying to figure out what is a safe carrier. You know, nobody said, we did the freight fraud symposium, and Jesse said, hey, we don't do that. We're not a rating agency.
Well, Jesse is the deputy administrator of the FMCSA.
That's right.
Which is, he's the second highest ranked regulator top that's in charge of trucking enforcement.
That's right.
And to your point, and he's an attorney.
Yep.
Which I think is probably fitting that he's the one that says,
yeah, the way he towed the line is probably fitting. But if you remember, Doug Wagner's in the audience, and he's like, great, so now what do we do? And I think that's the general question among the freight brokers.
Now, there was a case in Texas that was actually last week, we reported on it, where it was determined, it was a Home Depot, was actually the shipper that was involved in it. It was an accident. It was determined, it actually made it, I believe, to the Texas Supreme Court, said that you cannot hold the shipper accountable, which I think is an interesting sort of testament to the fact that this is going to be a 50-state litigation problem.
That's right.
Once you got rid of federal preemption, it's going to make it more difficult because you're now having to navigate every single law across the country.
That's right. And I think what will be really interesting that's not determined is how does risk change from state to state? How are underwriters going to respond? I mean, look, I think you and I may have talked about this already, but Richard Boschamp said after deregulation, your dad probably knew him, he ran FTC, RTC, Refrigerated Transport Corp. And there's a story that he told a young Teddy Kennedy, you didn't deregulate trucking. You just moved the regulation to the banks and the insurance companies. And so I think what you're going to see is like how the question that needs to be answered is who's going to underwrite it? Who's going to go out and say, what balance sheet is going to say we can tolerate the risk? Because it's no single freight broker and it's no single shipper. And so who's going to go out and say, this is what safety looks like and it can be underwritten. There can be insurance defense for it. And nobody's answered that question yet.
So we're now almost 2 weeks. I think we are 2 weeks into the SCOTUS decision.
Yep.
What behavioral changes have you seen among your customers in that 2 weeks? Have you seen anything dramatic or drastic that surprised you?
I wouldn't say dramatic or drastic. You know, we see probably 70-80% of brokered truckload volume because of the cohort of customers that we do business with. We have about 1,350 freight brokers.
And you get the top 100?
Yeah, the top 95 of them. So the volume is significant. So I think a lot of the long tail of the market is still flailing, trying to figure out what to do. What we've seen from our customers is an increase in freight exchange postings. So we've cracked record posting.
You're
days.
talking about for TFX.
Yeah, for TFX.
Because not DAT, which is the public
That's
load
correct.
board.
That's correct.
You know, I think most of our audience knows.
And I think we've seen some anecdotal things out on X that postings are down publicly. I don't know if that's true.
That is our channel checks say that public load boards postings are down. That's what we're hearing from folks that are familiar with.
I've heard that from some customers when they're looking.
And even some conversations about there's been this disconnect when Ken Adamo was at DAT about volumes, and there seems to be, they believe volumes are down. We would suggest that volumes are up. That's what our SONAR data suggests. But it's because we derive our data through electronic transactions. They derive it from postings, which is just a derivative of it. But what I've heard is that shippers are now not letting a lot of their freight be posted, and brokers are more concerned about posting their loads due to security reasons.
Yep.
But what else are you seeing?
Yeah, so I'll give you two things, that one on the posting and one on the shipper. So we've had like incremental posting days increase to the tune of thousands. And why that's significant is—
You're talking TFX. I want to be very specific as what we're talking about.
Yeah, I'm talking about TFX. And the reason that that's material is because that has to be a real load. It has to be a real load.
Why does it have to be a real load?
Well, it's part of the rules of the exchange. The carrier has to log in. When the carrier logs in and sees that load, they have to know that it's a real load. It has to be a bookable load. So it's an exchange with rules the way exchanges are designed. So it has to be a real load, has to come from the broker.
The binding transaction.
Yeah. So like the broker can't manually post.
There's no ghost loads.
No ghost loads. No ghost loads. And it has to be a real truck. And so the truck has to be observed on the telematics device and on the insurance policy in order to see that load. So when that increases, like that's a real signal. It's a real positive integer signal. Second thing I would say is I've had a lot of shippers call me, and we don't sell to them, We don't have anything for them. But what they've said is, I want to understand how highway works and what different levels of highway. One of the largest retailers called me and said, I want to make sure that brokers are verifying that the truck showing up at my facility or the facility of my vendor is the actual truck associated with the carrier. How do I do that? And so we're getting calls from shippers about the enforceability of those rules between highway and the shipper. And so the biggest increase we've seen in the last couple of weeks is like all of our load lock sales cycle accelerated. And so load lock is that thing where we take the rules and we look at it at the load level, where we're actually evaluating the truck, the lane, the OD pair, and sometimes the driver in real time. And so that pipeline has accelerated.
You talked about, so people are going to your marketplace, TFX, more so than they were in the past. That's been a pretty significant shift. Some of the feedback I've heard, or at least from drivers, which we talk to drivers often, X is the place where I talk to them.
Oh, I know.
And a lot of times highway has gotten a bad reputation. I think it's more to do with the fact that you're restricting.
That's right.
You're actually doing what you're supposed to be doing, which is you're effectively restricting whom can get freight. It's frustrating for small carriers, but there seems to be a direction shift from what you're saying, where now brokers are taking advantage of the marketplace, whereas before maybe they were sitting it out.
Yeah, they were. Well, look, you've been in payments, you've been in marketplace businesses. You know it takes time, and when you're trying to build a balanced exchange, you always have this like chicken and egg problem. And we are restrictive, and so motor carriers are used to a world where they log in and they can search and see anything they want. They can search and see anything they want.
Yeah, so you're talking about on TFX.
Yeah, well, I'm talking about in the world, they can search for anything.
Yeah.
You can go to any public load board and you can search. And in our world, you can only see what you're qualified to haul. You can only see what you're qualified to haul. And so they feel like it's restricted, but what they're starting to realize is that the loads they see are specifically for them. It's the same suggestion model that sits under Netflix, for example, right? We're actually suggesting and surfacing loads to the carrier based on their patterns, based on their insurance, based on their patterns, based on their movement.
All right, one last question before we go. There's been a lot of debate about whether this is good or bad for freight brokers. We both sell to a lot of freight brokers. They're big customers of ours. I have argued that the larger brokers are going to win more market share because shippers are going to want that defensibility. What is your read? What are you hearing?
Yeah. I think brokers are going to continue to thrive. I think this is something you've said for years, that any type of chaos in the market is good for the broker, right? They're able to absorb it in a way that the shipper can't and a large motor carrier can't expand their capacity fast enough. I do think the large brokers stand to have an advantage here, 100%, right? I also think that agents are going to do really well. I think that there's a lot of small brokers that are going to roll their businesses into agencies.
Well, Michael, we're going to have you back. I mean, this is the inaugural episode. Julie, amazing conversation with Michael. We could talk for another 30 minutes.
Always said with such conviction, so thank you so much. All right, so coming up, we are going to dive into fuller speed ahead, where we are going to get Craig's take on the market based on social media, and we are also going to continue to ask for your hot takes, bold calls, no filter. Bring in the comments. Remember to tweet and hashtag FW Today for any comments, hot takes, or burning questions, and we'll be right back.
The map is changing. As global uncertainties rise, the future of the supply chain is moving closer to home. Welcome to the new coast-to-coast North American network. Driven by massive reshoring trends and next-gen industrial innovation, optimized by AI workflows that build unshakable operational resilience, and locked down by proactive security against evolving freight fraud. Are you ready to navigate the shift? Join the industry's top minds to build the future. The FreightWaves Domestic Supply Chain Summit. streaming live June 17th. Register for free at live.freightwaves.com.
The super successful people are part of the 1%. They're part of that very, very small percentage. That's why I don't want you to do things that everybody's doing. I want you to do the small things that nobody else is doing. The people that are most successful in this business treat it like it's the only thing that's bringing income into their household. If you do that, then you'll have the same results. These people operate like they have no other chance. They have nothing else going. This is the only breadwinner that they have in play. I'm Adam Wingfield, and this is the FreightWaves Playbook. Become part of the 1%. Sign up for FreightWaves Playbook today.
All right, so who's the roadmap for specifically? If you are a driver and you want to become or interested in becoming an owner-operator, this is for you. If you're an owner-operator and you started off your business and maybe want to tweak it a little bit, this is for you. The difference between the roadmap and anything that's on the internet right now is that we take curated experience, we're taking insights and data, and we're combining all of that up with experience from on the road. My goal is to help you become a better business owner and a better owner-operator when it comes down to it. This roadmap is A to Z. Everything from an LLC startup all the way to buying a truck to getting on the road, making money and calling direct shippers. It is all included. We want to make sure that you have everything that you need to be successful in what you're doing. So if you're looking to get started in this industry, if you're started in the industry and you want to get better, tap into the roadmap.
Right, we're back. We're going to dig into our social feeds and talk about what's happening. We're going to go to the one and only Malcolm Harris and Craig Fuller. Remember, hashtag FW Today to send in any comments or feedback via X. Let's talk about what's happening in the market and what's happening on the social feed.
What's happening, guys? Welcome to the feed. This is different, but I like it, huh?
So, like I said, this is the first episode. We're just getting the kinks out.
Every great team, you got to get the kinks out.
This is definitely the preseason game.
100%. This preseason, it's all right though.
Although we do have the celebrity folks here. I mean, you know, we had Webb and we got Shelly Simpson coming up.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Gene Soroka. So it's not as if this is not featuring the most important folks.
No, for sure. So it's great.
What are people saying?
So right now, I mean, it's been great. A lot of likes. There's people really looking at all the articles that we've dropped today, as a matter of fact. So we've dropped stuff. There is one tweet from you specifically, sir, that we have seen a lot of traction I want to get to, and I'm going to talk about it. Truckload carriers will likely beat earnings this quarter. I want to get your take on this because it is the Goldilocks market for truckload carriers. What did you mean by that?
Yeah, so it's interesting because truckload carriers basically operate in the contract market, want to have their trucks full, but are also benefiting from high spot market exposure. A lot of shippers are now providing price concessions, are willing to take rate increases. So I think truckload carriers are definitely going to do better. But here's the secret. The secret is that they also buy fuel and they buy it on wholesale rack. So wholesale cost plus arrangements, ULSDR, which is wholesale cost of fuel. That's where they buy it. And so they're charging fuel surcharges. Shippers are paying the higher retail prices, which is across the country. And they're actually when they go out and buy fuel, they're buying it on wholesale. So it's going to increase their margin. If you look at what a lot of those, the sort of peak of fuel was at, we dropped 11 cents a mile. That's about 3% increased in margin. That's going to show up in operating ratios this season. So we're going to see some, I think a lot of the truckload guys, Wall Street seems to miss this story on fuel surcharges.
Why is that?
I don't know, but historically, it's always one of these things where it's hard to time it, it's hard to understand it. Everyone operates a little different, but you can sort of look at it on a mass level and see that Wall Street tends to miss that. So I think we'll see some of the truckload carriers beat their earnings simply because I don't know if those fuel prices are necessarily factored into the rates.
Nice. A couple other stories that have been kind of getting some traction as well. Top of the hour, Norfolk Southern today appointed Brian Barr as their chief operating officer. So that happened at the top of the hour. As well as out of Dallas, the based WWEX Group and a shipping software provider, Octane, have now completed their merger. So that officially happened a couple of hours ago.
Yeah, Worldwide Express is, I mean, if you think about Worldwide Express, we actually have the CEO on Wednesday is coming in studio into Chattanooga. I mean, Worldwide Express is, one of the interesting things about Worldwide Express's business model is they certainly have bought Global Trans. They have a big agent program, but they really have the ability to sell parcel to small shippers. They're the only licensee of UPS that can sell UPS's parcel services that are not UPS reps. And so they have the pharmaceutical model. When you walk in, years ago, I got invited to go down to their national sales conference.
Okay.
The people were much more beautiful than I was. The men and the women were just absolutely, they follow the pharmaceutical model. You walk in there, I was completely underdressed. I'm not dressed like I was today. I was in this founder get up, right?
Of course.
I'm walking in and I'm like, whoa, I'm way underdressed. And everybody in here is like half the age, like they're young, they're aggressive, and they're far more beautiful than I am. And that is the Worldwide model. And they built an amazing, amazing franchise of being able to offer discounted parcel to their customers. But they also bought Global Trans in one of the largest mergers in history.
Holy smokes. Last thing for you that I have, it's out of FedEx Corp, investing, again, $54 million to expand a major truck terminal in the Netherlands. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, look, Netherlands, by the way, an amazing place to go.
I've heard.
Beautiful.
I've heard great things.
By the way, it's probably the most beautiful country in Europe, in my opinion. Yeah. It's just absolutely gorgeous. And look, it is a big logistics capital.
Absolutely.
Like right in the middle of Netherlands, you've got one of the largest airports in the entire world that's there. That's the Amsterdam airport, a lot of air cargo, but also flowers. Yeah. One of the unknown things, they have this massive flower market where it's almost like an exchange where they're selling all sorts of flowers, and there's buyers that go into a room and they're literally basically bidding on freight in real time. And I think FedEx is probably taking advantage of that real logistics infrastructure. The Port of Rotterdam is right near there, and it makes complete sense that FedEx would continue to expand there.
That's fantastic stuff. You guys heard it again from Craig Fuller. So this segment is essentially going to be, guys, the feed. So every day, Monday through Friday, there is going to be the opportunity again to tweet us directly. I have the what I call the iPad of life. So I'm literally on Craig's Twitter X feed. Excuse me, I don't say Twitter anymore. We say X because we're professionals.
To the OGs.
It's like if my mom named me Malcolm, Twitter. My name is Malcolm, right? So it's Twitter until otherwise. But no, we're on X, so make sure you tweet at FreightWaves, also using the hashtag FWToday to ensure that we get some commentary from you guys. Want to know how it's going down. Also on LinkedIn as well, we are there going between both platforms to be able to get your commentary out to you all. All right, so with that, I'm going to toss it back to Julie.
And next hour, we're cooking with the hottest news in logistics. Coming up, Shelley Simpson didn't just break the glass ceiling, she shattered it. The president and CEO of J.B. Hunt has a lot on her mind. Plus, Gene Soroka, his port moves the world's goods. And tariffs are shaking everything up. Stay with us, it's going to be a great hour.
What's the masterclass all about? Well, here's what I'm going to tell you. If you're a driver, you're an owner-operator, you're a fleet owner, whether you're in compliance services, dispatcher, no matter what it is, masterclass is for you. Every 2 weeks, you're going to sit down with me and we're going to go over certain business topics that are related specifically to your small trucking company operations. We're going to help you with everything from compliance to how to negotiate better on the spot board, how to find direct freight, and everything in between. This is the reason why you don't want to miss out on Masterclass. It's about an hour to an hour and a half. And then on top of that, you'll have the library to you so that way you can always research and reflect back onto it. Don't miss out this opportunity. This is built specifically for you. I'm excited and I hope to see you in class.
Imagine a world where your freight moves as fast as a digital pulse. What if your visibility didn't just tell you where a truck was, but exactly where it needed to be 48 hours from now? Think of a logistics network that corrects its own mistakes before they cost you a single dime. What if your supply chain could think for itself? Imagine AI agents negotiating rates in milliseconds, predictive models that solve labor shortages before they even happen. This isn't science fiction, it's the agenda. On July 15th at the historic Old Post Office in Chicago, FreightWaves presents the Supply Chain AI Symposium. We are defining in real time how AI is embedded into every mile, every warehouse, and every handshake. Because in 2026, the future isn't just coming, it's already negotiating. The FreightWaves Supply Chain AI Symposium. Secure your spot now.
Welcome back to FreightWaves Today. History is being made right here, right now, on our very first show. I'm Julie Vandekamp, and this is our premiere episode. We're live at noon Eastern every weekday. We have everything you need to know about what's moving in logistics and beyond. Today, I'm joined by my co-host, the one and only Craig Fuller, founder and CEO of both FreightWaves and SONAR. And we're just getting warmed up, and we couldn't be more excited about our next hour. We've got some great guests lined up, including Shelley Simpson, the president and CEO of J.B. Hunt. She's going to give us some strategy on the volatile market, and we're going to really get into a lot with her. Excited. And then we're also going to have Gene Soroka as he tells us how America's busiest port is navigating these choppy waters. So let's go. We're going to get into the headlines. We're keeping an eye on all the news that moves freight. A new player hits Wall Street this morning. FedEx Freight begins trading as an independent company, splitting off from its parent after decades under the FedEx umbrella. The largest LTL carrier in America is now on its own, and the market is watching. UPS is spending $50 million to crack open a new frontier starting in August. The shipping giant will fly its own aircraft on time-definite, heavy freight routes between the United States and Mexico for the first time ever. Washington is back in session, and fuel prices are front and center. Congress returned from Memorial Day recess today, with rising gas prices driving a partisan fight over affordability. For the trucking industry, there's also $580 billion in infrastructure funding on the table, including new truck parking grants along major freight corridors. Freight is moving, and so are we. So let's talk a bit about those headlines, Craig. I know you're into aircraft, so I'm sure that one piqued your interest. But I think it's interesting to watch, and I haven't gotten a chance to see the FedEx ticker as well.
Yeah, FedEx Freight spinning off from FedEx, I think it's a big deal. FedEx Freight is one of the largest LTLs. It's been unloved. Wall Street has unloved the FedEx LTL business, but we saw this also. If you go back 15 years ago, we saw the consolidation. Actually, FedEx bought American Freight over 20 years ago. That was in the early 2000s. And it's interesting how they went and did this consolidation. They also bought Kenco's, what's the place where you go get copies? Kinko, thank you. Kinko is a logistics company. But anyways,
great company.
There was a lot of consolidation. FedEx bought American Freight. They did some consolidation. UPS did the same when it bought Overnight. And we've seen this consolidation happen, and now we're seeing deconglomerization. XPO has spun off into 3 separate companies. FedEx is trying to do the same. They're trying to get a lot more love from Wall Street, which the LTL business has been a very challenging business for FedEx because it's a very different business than their core parcel business.
All right, great. Thanks for that additional context, Craig. I really appreciate it. So next we're going to have our third and very exciting guest on the show. She climbed every rung of the corporate ladder at J.B. Hunt, and now she runs the place. Today, Shelley Simpson is president and CEO of one of the largest freight companies in North America. The market is shifting, and no one has a better read on it than she does. Shelley, welcome to FreightWaves Today.
For having me.
Shelley, you're an inaugural guest, first show where you're still getting the kinks out of the system. As you know, doing something live in production has a lot of exceptions. Speaking of exceptions, J.B. Hunt is managing so much in the supply chain. What are you guys seeing right now? What's the state of the market?
Well, I don't think, Craig, that a lot has changed since we had our last first quarter earnings report, which really was, you heard us talk about having a fragile environment from a supply side perspective. And certainly we've seen that play out really as the first of the year just continued to progress overall. I would say demand is steady from our customers, not unlike the conversations we've been having. And I think our customers are neutral to slightly optimistic. Certainly on the supply side, we're continuing to feel the same impact that we felt in the first quarter, but feel good about the positioning we're at with our customers.
In terms of intermodal activity, obviously it's a significant savings for supply chains. It also seems to be shippers that are taking advantage of intermodal, where they don't have to take warehouse space. They're able to move products across the supply chain. What are you seeing exactly in the market right now?
Well, Craig, one of the things we've worked really hard is restoring our customers' confidence that intermodal can be a long-term sustainable part of their supply chain. And so we've had really good success with our railroad providers and really working through several peaks with our customers. And this year has been really a good movement for our customers to think about intermodal, but in particular, because if you think about budgets and how our customers really have to move forward on their budgets, anytime that they're missing their budget, they're going to be more interested in ways that we can help them save money. And certainly this year, not only with what's happening on the supply side and a lack of really follow through on their first priority or their first position on the routing guide, that's been an issue, but also fuel has been an issue. So a combination of those two things have our customers really thinking about intermodal more and more, but it really just thinking about our entire company overall. Anytime our customers are missing their budget, they really look more towards us and start to say, okay, we trust you. We believe that you've got good answers. How should we be thinking about doing our supply chain better and different? And certainly that has continued through this year.
Now, Shelley, you have been at J.B. Hunt for much of your career. I understand you actually were teaching school at one point. Is that right? Did I remember that correctly?
Well, I was a preschool teacher, so I've had 3 jobs my whole life. My first one was I was a waitress at Pizza Hut during high school. And then in college, I taught preschool at KinderCare. And then I graduated from the University of Arkansas and started at J.B. Hunt 2 weeks later. And 32 years ago last Monday, here I am.
Wow. Congratulations on your success. What is really, in terms of what you've seen in the industry, and you speak specifically over J.B. Hunt, what has been the evolution of the business since you first joined?
Oh gosh, well, that's a long time ago, Craig. Back then we actually did a lot of different businesses back then. I don't think that I knew enough about them. I started in customer service, but we had a lot of different businesses. And by the year 2000, we really spun the businesses that our then chairman didn't believe could be at least billion-dollar businesses. We really spun those outside the company and really focused and made sure that we could really build our businesses off of the strength of J.B. Hunt. And that was really when we started our intermodal segment separately, along with truckload and dedicated contract services. And through that process, we spent the next 20 years really building out supply chain solutions for our customers. So how we're organized today in 5 different business units, intermodal being our largest, dedicated following that, and then really our logistics services across our brokerage platform of JB Hunt 360. We utilize both 360 Box and our brokerage direct with contract carriers, and then final mile coming into the final portion of our customers into their home. And so there's been a lot of evolution, but I would say the other thing, Craig, is that we understand the supply chain a lot better with our customers. We really try to think about it from a consultative nature. So how can we help our customers be more right? And because we have so many different answers across the supply chain, that really allows us to do that.
I want to get back into and ask more about 360 and when you guys initially got into that. But before we do that, I, as a fellow woman in our industry, have really, really enjoyed watching the trajectory of your career and love the story of how you really worked your way up. Prior to being the CEO, what was the hardest job you had over the years, sort of working your way through the organization?
Well, in 2006, our then CEO, Kirk Thompson, and Craig Harper, our COO, asked me to start up a brokerage business unit. And at the time, we were an asset-based organization. And I don't think we do a lot about what the value proposition of a broker was. And I remember when we very first started that up, which has since been called ICS, or Integrated Capacity Solutions, that was the toughest part of my 32-year career, mostly because if you think about being in an asset-based business, when you want to bring on non-asset into an asset-based business to say, okay, we're going to go get freight that doesn't necessarily fit our network, but will fit other carriers' networks. In an asset-based business, that was a little bit like cussing in Sunday school. It was difficult. Our customers didn't necessarily understand the why. Our shareholders didn't understand the why, and our people weren't necessarily interested in the why. And so you didn't really have anybody pulling for you, if you will. But I will say, leadership from the top down, that was something that they were committed to, we were bought into, but really getting that off the ground was probably the hardest thing I've done in my career.
I've lived that life a bit, where that internal sell is honestly sometimes harder than the external sell when you're trying to do brokerage inside of an asset-based company. So
Asset-based carriers are notorious for they get the freight that nobody wants, but then there's also the risk or issue of, as soon as the trucks are empty, you immediately divert a lot of that cargo to the asset side. It's hard to balance that, Shelley. How does JB Hunt think about that when you look at your brokerage? Because we saw this at US Express. Julie was at US Express. I watched it from the sidelines, where the brokerage business didn't really necessarily serve the interest of in US Express's case, the red truck. It didn't necessarily serve the customer's best interest. How do you guys balance that?
Well, that was probably what was so difficult about it, Craig, because we were not an overflow model. We didn't have a brokerage business for the assets that we had. We already had a good asset network. It really was about complementing what our customers needed overall, but also when our own trucks needed freight, we believed if we could rise the amount of freight that was available and take more freight on, then certainly our assets could become one of our largest carriers as well. And so that overflow part of the business, we do operate all 5 business units independently with different margin targets. However, we do look for what complements overall. But if we look at it through the eyes of our customers, we always have to be solving for our customers with the most efficient way to do business. That really lends itself to our vision statement, which is to create the most efficient transportation network in North America. And if we do that, we have to look at it the way our customers do. And so, Craig, our assets might want it, but if we think cost, service, and capacity can happen differently with a contract carrier because it fits their network better, we're going to actually provide that to the customers. And in some cases, we give them 2 prices. We say, okay, well, here's an asset price and here's a brokerage price, and we let the customers choose what that can be.
It takes a lot of thick skin. I chuckle because I have been there when the trucks have tried to want the freight and it's not the best fit for the customer. And as you're building a brokerage business, you got to have thick skin. You got to be able to fight in the battles. You got to have grit. I mean, you know this, Julie.
Oh gosh, yes.
Like the grit of Julie ran brokerage at US Express, so she knows all about how that works.
Yeah, no, and I think that the way you explained it makes perfect sense and doesn't make it not hard. It's still really hard. But I think one of the other benefits that I would love to hear more about, that I think of having your 5 business units that operate independently, but also can provide kind of amazing multi-service offerings for your customers, right? Having assets and being able to have assets to lean on beyond your dedicated business, I imagine, is a huge benefit and selling point for your customers as well, to allow for surge and flex there. Do those businesses interact, your OTR and intermodal and other assets, with your dedicated business?
Oh, of course. Like, we operate across the network. So when we think about a customer, we think holistically from a customer's need. Think about it like this. We really can handle any part of a customer's supply chain, from a pallet all the way to really managing their entire supply chain. So when we have those services in both asset and non-asset, it allows us to really put what we believe the best answer is for the customer. Now, remember, when we talked about starting brokerage inside our company, I grew up on the asset part of the business. So I spent the first 12 years inside the asset space. I understand the value proposition of bringing assets to a customer overall. And so I think if we were trying to maybe do the opposite, be a broker trying to bring on assets, that might be more difficult. But for us, I think we just understand that we're managing our customers' freight spend. We're understanding what fits best for them. And so in general, if a customer has business in dedicated, for example, they're also going to have overflow business. They're going to need help and think about what they're doing on one way. So we're always going to talk to them comprehensively across all the business that we do. And thankfully for us, we're large in all of our different business units. And so our ability to bring real answers to them that give them the best flexibility around cost, service, and capacity really comes to life for them.
Shelley, it's funny you talk about just the overall market having, brokers getting into assets. There's been a lot of blood and loss spent on brokers trying to get an asset. It's a different game entirely. It's one of the reasons Convoy didn't make it was they went out and either leased or acquired thousands of trailers. That's a very different business. Starting with the asset side gives you an enormous advantage, I imagine, in this environment where shippers are looking for dependable solutions. They want their freight secure. And the fact that you have your own power gives you an enormous amount of advantage in the mind of shipper dependency and service. What are you hearing from your shippers specifically as it relates to that?
Well, Craig, I think one advantage we have is that we were founded by a driver. So Mr. Hunt was a driver. And so starting the roots of our company that we will celebrate 65 years this August, we understand, thank you, we understand, what does it look like to be a driver and how do we build a company based on drivers? And so whether that's us with our own employees and our own drivers or contracting with other carriers and what their drivers go through, I think that's the advantage that we have, that we understand the life of a driver. We understand the need for that equipment to turn, because when the equipment is turning, then our drivers are making more money, contract carriers are making more money. I think that's a real advantage for us, how we talk to our customers. Customers want to know that they can trust what you tell them. And that's big to us. We call ourselves a say-do company. Actually, Craig, we got given that name from a customer. I was with a customer about 10 years ago that just said, "Hey, Shelley, I have to tell you this decision that you made. It was kind of a decision that was tough." He said, "The decision you made, we were talking about at our executive team this morning, and this was a very large customer." He said, and you are what we call a say-do company. And that stuck with me. It's like when we do what we say, we always talk about integrity, but say-do is a big part of how we think inside the organization. So our customers trust us, whether that's an asset picking up a shipment for them or a non-asset driver picking up a shipment for them. They just want to know that if we tell them we can do something, that we can do that. And honoring our word is very important inside our organization. I think that's regardless of what type of equipment is actually pulling a shipment for a customer.
Probably grounded in that Arkansas roots of do what you're told. That's sort of the Southern way. Shelley, you mentioned drivers. Obviously, they're the most important topic in trucking, always have been. They are what makes a trucking company successful, but really our whole supply chain relies on it. There's been a lot of noise and conversations in the market about driver availability, who is qualified to be a driver in this environment. But it also creates pressure. One of the most challenging things about a trucking company, as freight is good and as rates follow the market, drivers get harder to recruit. How are you guys really navigating that story right now?
Well, as I think about what Kirk Thompson once said to us, he who has the driver wins. I think that's an important component in how we think about inside the organization. You talked about drivers. For us, they are the heartbeat of our company. They see our customers more often than we do. And so we recognize that this is a cyclical market. We recognize that supply and demand, swings, and it's not always in one direction or the other. And so this is something I think we're really great at, is managing drivers, having drivers available, and making sure that we take great care of our customers. Certainly, that's what I've been talking about, Craig, is the supply side is more fragile, and you're starting to feel that. You're starting to feel the effects, whether that's in the spot market or routing guides are breaking down for customers. All of that is related to, is the right amount of capacity available for our customers at the right time. And I feel like that's something that we excel. Typically during a crisis, we do very well with our customers because we're going to lock in arm with them. We don't go chase short-term freight. For us, it is about meeting our customers' commitments and making sure that we can do exactly what we say. And whether that's bringing on more drivers, more equipment, whatever we need to do to make sure to fulfill our obligations with customers. From a safe perspective, that's something that we're going to do.
Shelley, would you call this a crisis? Has the capacity environment reached the boiling point? I know the data suggests it looks like COVID in terms of just the overall rate. Would you call the capacity situation at crisis levels?
I would say capacity is still fragile, Craig. I don't know that I would call it crisis because it depends on where you're talking about.
Yeah.
If you're located in the Ohio area, it is a very tough environment right now. Anything there in the Midwest from a driver market perspective, capacity is really tight there. Texas is tighter than it has been historically. We're seeing pockets in the Northeast. We've got pockets in Washington. So I don't know that I would call it a crisis because for me, it really is about how close do we work together? What are the steps that we need to take to ensure that our customer supply chains are in good shape, that they're stable, that they're reliable? If you think about it from a driver's perspective, drivers want to do really great work on behalf of our customers. We will onboard the right number of drivers to take great care of our customers. If that becomes even tighter, that can only mean good things for our drivers in the long term.
Shelley, I've remarked on how different this freight market is than any that I've certainly, since we've had data. It sort of reminds me back when I was working dispatch in the early 2000s, where the heart of freight was really the Midwest. It was that I-35 corridors where we saw freight up in the upper Midwest, the old manufacturing down to the south. That is what at least the data is suggesting, and you just mentioned Ohio being an incredibly tight market. How surprised are you with the way the market's operating? Your business has been largely benefited from intermodal, which has had a lot of international freight over the last couple of decades, but it does feel like, or it looks like a different market. Are you seeing the same thing?
Well, I would say the capacity certainly is different today than it has been in the past. Primarily, we believe, driven from the enforcement coming from this administration. And so if you think about, in particular, cabotage, I think that's been very meaningful when it comes to the Texas border, also anything in the Midwest. Both of those areas have been impacted more than we've historically seen. And that's why I think you're seeing the tightness that is occurring. And historically, Craig, those are markets, I should say the Midwest is a market that will tighten faster than, say, a Texas. Texas is different. But if you think about, what's happening inside Texas as well, that entire state is really growing. Our customers are moving into that state more and more. And so I think the supply chain is changing as you're seeing more offices relocate, investments happening there as well. So I think you're seeing some changes, but you're seeing the tightening occur from the driver's side first, and then certainly demand, I think, follows.
Yeah, and I think if you'd be willing to talk a bit more about, as we've seen that capacity exit, and certainly some of the most recent regulation, probably we would agree beneficial for large carriers and brokers, and potentially creating more pressure on smaller
beneficial
carriers.
For everybody. We know that this industry has a massive safety, has pockets of the industry it's not safe. It's not, the larger carriers, J.B. Hunt included, have remarkable safety records because you guys have been able to build the processes to bring on the right talent. Right. You have amazing training programs. The problem is not everyone in the industry is adhering to that. That's why we're seeing the compliance breakdown or crackdown.
Yeah, so with that being something that obviously the large carriers, most of the things that are now part of regulation are things you're already doing, right? Liability issues would not allow for you to not do any of those things. But are you guys seeing, you mentioned Texas, the Midwest, and when you think about your brokerage group as well, you are seeing capacity tighten more quickly in those markets as you think those maybe
Because the compliance
non-compliant
crackdowns
drivers
happening?
are leaving? Do you think those are tied to each other?
Oh, definitely. I mean, we have said that we believe we have a white paper that we've published. We continue to keep that updated with new information coming from administration, but we do believe that that is what's creating a more even playing field. You know, if you think about the regulations that have been in place for so long, those were enforced, and for whatever reason here, probably because of COVID, just lack of being able to enforce or even lack of resources, possibly. For whatever reason, that became more relaxed, and now you're starting to see really that enforcement become really equalizing what the playing field should look like from the beginning. If you think about this 4-year elongated downturn that we've experienced in the industry, longest in my career, it was very difficult to explain what was happening really past about year 2. It makes a lot of sense to me now what's happened over the last couple of years. If you just think about how carriers were running and not following what our laws were here in our country. And I think that's really important. Just we're okay with competing with anyone. We just want to make sure that it's fair and that it's safe. And I do think that's having an impact on capacity.
Yeah, it seems really odd that the smaller carriers that were non-compliant, some of them got really big, unfortunately, played by a completely different set of rules than the larger carriers that had to adhere to it because it gave. They were doing well and prospering, but taking advantage of the lack of enforcement and regulations, while the biggest players were actually struggling in this market. So I had to ask, the timing of your going in as CEO about the depths of the freight recession was probably a pretty stressful time, but I imagine there's also the advantage of you can only go up from here. How do you feel about that?
Well, if I actually back you up, Craig, I was named president right before the freight recession started. So July of 2022, I stepped in the president role, and that's really when the whole recession started. And so it wasn't unusual to me because by the time that I took on the CEO role, I understood where we were at. But I also would say I think there's always great opportunity to take a crisis and really create something different. And that's something that we really worked on is how to take the opportunity. We didn't think it would last for 4 years, but how do we take the opportunity of where we're at right now and really do some things different? And it's where we really spent a lot of time thinking about the investments that we made in our people, our technology, and our capacity. And so we leaned into that, really taking the strength of our balance sheet to say, okay, well, we are different and we are unique. And so we invested over $500 million in wages and benefits for our people. We made sure not to do any mass layoffs during this past 4 years, which I think is something we're very proud of. We do believe people, that does make the biggest difference inside our organization. We continue to invest in technology, and certainly you know that we invested in capacity to be prepared and ready for such a time as this, Craig. Right now, what we're talking about with our customers, we are prepared, we are ready. So as they are needing our help, we have the right level of capacity. We certainly have the best people. Put those two things together with technology empowering us, we've really done a nice job setting ourselves up for the inflection point. And when things continue to get even better, feel like that we're set up best for the long term.
Shelley, one of the conversations I'll never forget, you and I actually spoke around the time that you were named CEO, and we were talking about the freight recession. And one of the comments you made, which has stuck with me, is you said, Craig, I've been in this business through every cycle you could imagine. And I think that has positioned you guys incredibly well because you have not only leadership that is from this industry, that has lived all cycles, but the business itself, the institution, J.B. Hunt's business model, and I tell investors this all the time, you have the most diversified strategic business of all price points, of all service types, where you're incredibly positioned for any market. Whether we're talking downturn, you've got the intermodal business, which offers significant discounts, but you've also got your last mile business, which is on the sort of the premium side in terms of cost. You guys are incredibly well positioned for all sides of the market.
Well, I mean, I appreciate you saying all those things. And I think part of that, Craig, we do have a great diversified model, but we also have a lot of tenure inside our organization, from our drivers to our technicians to our office teams. If I think about, I've served on our executive team for the past 19 years. And so that's the reason I was able to say that to you. I remember sitting in the boardroom during the great economic recession of '09, and I remember the decisions we made and how we thought through that. And we are very long-term in the way that we think about our people, our customers, and our shareholders as well. But we want to make sure that we are prudent and take good care of the short term, where we should and where we can without jeopardizing long-term overall what we can do for all three of those. And so I do feel like we're in a good position. I think the strength of our people and the amount of time, one of the things that we talk a lot about is our executive leadership team at J.B. Hunt has an average tenure of over 25 years in the company. But it's not just that team. You can kind of take that through. Our senior VPs and VPs both have 21 and 20 years. Our directors are 13 to 14 years inside the organization, and so on and so forth. And so when I think about that, when I think about having 5,401 million-mile drivers now with their names permanently etched into our wall from a safety perspective, that's the strength and the tenure inside the organization that people get when they work with J.B. Hunt. And I think that's the reason we lean so much into our people, because in the ups or the downs, when you keep people that have been there, it's been tried, and we've tested it and we know what is true, then we can think longer term and realize that even if we're in a recession, if we just take care of the principles and the values that we know that got us here, then we can continue to push forward.
Shelley, thank you so much. One thing I would point out is, yes, they have a lot of seasoned veterans, but the management team is actually quite young relative. I mean, lots of experience measured in centuries, but you guys are still young. You have a long room ahead of you. It's a pretty amazing story.
Yeah, it is.
Shelley, congratulations.
Yes, and thank you for spending the time with us today. So again, Shelley Simpson, President and CEO of J.B. Hunt Transport Services. It's been an honor to speak with you today, and we'll hope that you'll join us again soon. Coming up, we're going coast to coast, and we're going on to America's biggest and busiest port, and we're going to have Gene Soroka, the Executive Director of the Port of Los Angeles, to join us live for the West Coast Picture. Don't miss it.
The map is changing. As global uncertainties rise, the future of the supply chain is moving closer to home. Welcome to the new coast-to-coast North American network. Driven by massive reshoring trends and next-gen industrial innovation, optimized by AI workflows that build unshakable operational resilience, and locked down by proactive security against evolving freight fraud. Are you ready to navigate the shift? Join the industry's top minds to build the future. The FreightWaves Domestic Supply Chain Summit, streaming live June 17th. Register for free at live.freightwaves.com.
The super successful people are part of the 1%. They're part of that very, very small percentage. That's why I don't want you to do things that everybody's doing. I want you to do the small things that nobody else is doing. The people that are most successful in this business treat it like it's the only thing that's bringing income into their household. If you do that, then you'll have the same results. These people operate like they have no other chance. They have nothing else going. This is the only breadwinner that they have in play. I'm Adam Wingfield, and this is the FreightWaves Playbook. Become part of the 1%. Sign up for FreightWaves Playbook today.
All right, so who's the roadmap for specifically? If you are a driver and you want to become or interested in becoming an owner-operator, this is for you. If you're an owner-operator and you started off your business and maybe want to tweak it a little bit, this is for you. The difference between the roadmap and anything that's on the internet right now is that we take curated experience, we're taking insights and data, and we're combining all of that up with experience from on the road. My goal is to help you become a better business owner and a better owner-operator when it comes down to it. This roadmap is A to Z. Everything from an LLC startup all the way to buying a truck to getting on the road making money and calling direct shippers. It is all included. We want to make sure that you have everything that you need to be successful in what you're doing. So if you're looking to get started in this industry, if you're started in an industry and you want to get better, tap into the roadmap.
Welcome back. The Port of Los Angeles is America's busiest port, 26 consecutive years running. And right now, it's the center of every major story in global trade. Tariffs, consumer demand, what's coming in from Asia. Gene Soroka sees it all first. Port of Los Angeles Executive Director Gene Soroka joins us now. Gene, it's so great to have you.
Julie, Craig, good to see you both, and congratulations on launching FreightWaves Today.
Well, appreciate it. This is our inaugural show. We're still getting the kinks out. Had a couple service failures today, but we're going to get there. Gene, you play such an important role not only in U.S. import markets, but just global markets, with America being the most important market in the world from a freight perspective. You guys have had the brunt of a lot of different regulatory changes, as well as a lot of things that have been happening over the last decade. What are you currently seeing in the market?
Oh, Craig, it sure has been a roller coaster with changes in international and trade policy to the pandemic and everything in between. The one thing that can be said is the supply chain community has really stuck together, and that's what I'm most proud of. What we're seeing today is a stronger market than maybe some would have expected. Here at the Port of Los Angeles, just as one barometer, we're down about 2% in total volume compared to a very strong 2025, but we're up by about that same 2 percentage points compared to the 5-year rolling average. So all in all, the American consumer and American manufacturer have continued strong through all the ups and downs.
Yeah, our earlier interview with Webb, who runs Estee's LTL business, actually suggests that's the case, is that they're seeing much stronger retail and consumer demand than they expected. Gene, are you expecting that to continue through the rest of the year?
That's the big question right now, Craig. How much are fuel prices and the general discussion about affordability going to impact the American family during the back half of the year, and especially in the all-important holiday season? As of right now, we're still seeing people spend, but generally bargain hunting, looking for the best deals to stretch the family budget as much as they can. And with gas prices up nearly 30% over the last several months, diesel prices here in Southern California up 50%, this conversation weighs on a lot of people's minds.
Yeah, what about market share from the Port of LA? There's been this last decade, there's been this sort of competition, we'll call it. And I don't know if you guys think of it as a competition, but we like in media to talk about it as a competition, East versus West. How are you seeing in terms of market share for West Coast? It seems like you guys have certainly gained market share this year over some of your East Coast competitors. How are you thinking about the business?
It truly is competition across a variety of options that importers and exporters have, one of which being these nodal ports. Take it back 25 years ago. In the Trans-Pacific trade, which is still the most lucrative in the industry, 80% of the cargo went through West Coast ports. Today, it's a little more than half. Many importers and exporters have diversified their supply chains and ports of entry and exit. And I must say that our competitors around the country have hired switched-on leadership, aligned with policymakers, and invested in their world-class facilities. All this does is raise the bar for the American economy to grow. We welcome it, and we still got to continue to prove our point every day to those who have a choice.
Tariffs have been obviously the most important story in international trade over the last couple of years. The Supreme Court has ruled 2 major tariff decisions over the last couple of weeks. How is that impacting the way that importers are thinking about freight today? Are you seeing any change in movement? Is this creating more momentum?
It's an interesting topic of conversation as well. Right after that discussion about affordability is what's happening with trade policy. And realistically speaking, with the Supreme Court's decision on tariffs back in February, you got about $170 billion in question that, if redirected back to this American economy, could smooth out some of these bumps in the next 6 months. We haven't seen that actually get to the consumer, but a number of retailers and other importers are telling me they may just use other marketing plans to get us back into their stores and online shopping. Discounts, gift certificates, any way to move traffic either through the keyboard or in the bricks and mortar store is what they're focused on now. And it was about 2/3 of those tariffs collected, which are in the balance right now, about $170 billion US dollars, which could be meaningful to help our US economy continue to grow. At the same time, what does it mean for these Section 122 tariffs that are temporary in nature, only 150 days in duration, which are set to expire on July 24th? What comes next? We've heard of the investigations on Section 301 tariffs, which by definition will have to be much more prescriptive and pointed towards specific commodities than the sweeping tariffs we saw under the International Emergency Economic Powers Authority, or IEPA. So again, even for the most seasoned professional, this is a lot to keep up with, but safe to say there'll be more decisions on trade policy coming down line that we all have to keep up with, adjust to, because that's what we want. Simply put, tell us the ground rules so we can get to work. These stops and starts and whipsaw effects are what really are impeding our ultimate economic growth.
Gene, I imagine, I know it for me, the idea that freight supply chain would be the center of global business news is somewhat new to you, whereas it used to be an afterthought or an after effect, but this has all changed really since COVID. And perhaps even before that, when Donald Trump's first set of tariffs sort of came in, supply chains became front and center. What is that experience like for you running one of the most, if not the most important port in the United States?
Craig, you're exactly right. This industry used to fly under the radar for so many decades. And when we saw a bump in the economy or something that impacted overall growth, we'd start to look a little bit to how much the consumer was spending or factory output. But since that time in the first administration, when we saw this get tough on China policy and tariffs go in, we saw huge run-ups in cargo when these tariffs were announced, and then subsequent drop-offs in arrivals because folks tried to rush their cargo in to lower their price points. We had an idea of what was going to happen this go around because of all the discussion on the campaign trail, but it continues to be front and center. My travels overseas are usually started with the first meeting about how we level set our international trade relationships and continue to prove to the world that Los Angeles is still the same and we want to keep trade going. But again, folks are wondering, what do I have to do next? And do I start developing relationships with others? And that's been the preeminent theme over the last 15 months. Soybeans are down year on year to China from the United States by 90%. Trade with Brazil and Argentina for that product is up greatly. Almonds are coming out of Australia and pistachios moving to India from other sources. So we're starting to see normal trading partners make deals with others, leaving the U.S. on the sidelines. This will need to be watched very carefully because the impact it's having, especially on the American farmer.
Yeah, I think you said we all knew what was happening on the campaign trail. Much of what we hear on campaign trails, you sort of think, well, they can't be serious, or that anytime someone makes a promise at campaign trail. I certainly didn't think it would be blanket tariffs, Liberation Day. I didn't expect it to be that, call it chaotic or sort of, this massive blanket tariff across the country or across the world. It felt like it was a lot less targeted than it was in the first administration. It certainly caught us by surprise. Did you feel like that was the direction that it was going to head?
We started hearing on the campaign trail in the summertime of 2024, the tariffs on China would be up to 60%, 10% tariffs on the rest of the world, and that we were going to bring manufacturing back to the United States. Now, with 400,000 manufacturing jobs still open in this country, aspirational at best, but this is a decades-long approach. And there needs to be a very sector-specific review on manufacturing, shipbuilding, and the like. A very thorough look at where we get the talent from and what training needs are necessary. And then thirdly, how do you build the ecosystem? Much like the tiered suppliers in the automotive industry in the Ohio Valley in Michigan, if you're going to start building, you have to have those suppliers in your geography. Using LA as an example, we have the largest base of manufacturing jobs in the country in LA County. More than 400,000 of us go to work every day at manufacturing facilities, yet they only export 1% of what they produce, even with a port in their backyard. So there are different ways to go about this, and one that may be less impactful on the American consumer. Please remember that coffee and bananas are up 10% in price at our grocery stores compared to last year, and I don't see them reshoring those products back to the United States.
So as we talk about geopolitical disruptions and some others, and tariffs and regulation, you've warned that even if the conflict in Iran ends, it could take months to unwind the backlog and restore normal shipping schedules. So how are you at the port preparing for that?
Having lived and worked in the Middle East, Julie, for 5 years, I maintain some very strong business contacts and regular communication. In our industry, if a port is shut down for any reason, it likely takes about 3 days to catch back up on all those ships going in and out and trying to get back on schedule. So now we're going into the 4th month of this war with Iran. We also have, in a war-torn region, the complexity of trying to rebuild infrastructure, whether it be at ports, airports, fueling and refining facilities. This is going to take months on end to get us back into some semblance of normalcy with respect to scheduling and supply chain flows. The United States has fared better than some, even though our retail gas prices are up much higher than some had anticipated. Jet fuel, as an example, is being produced in higher quantities here in and around the Port of Los Angeles with our tenants than before, because other parts of the world are struggling with supply as they have a deeper reliance on the Middle East for the raw products and refined as well. Jet fuel specifically. We've pushed out a couple of freighters going to Australia to help their airports. There'll be more going to Southeast Asia. And the European community has about 75% of their jet fuel that emanates from the Middle East, and specifically from the Arabian Gulf. So while we've got all these other supply chain inputs and deliverables to watch here closely, it's trying to reroute all this product. For California specifically, 30% of our crude imports come from the Middle East, and again, that flow through the Strait of Hormuz. Refining companies, those big name energy firms, are now trying to source additional supply, and while they might not make up for that 30% delta, there's going to continue to be that pursuit, knowing the squeeze on demand with the summer drive time months right ahead of us.
Gene, I got to ask, what do you tell importers right now, BCOs, that they should be doing to really manage all of this volatility?
Well, number one, we're staying really close together. And whether it was the annual Agricultural Transportation Coalition Conference that Peter Friedman heads up in Tacoma, or the ongoing dialogue that we have with import associations like the National Retail Federation, Knit League, and others, staying close together, sharing the information as best we can. Let's not get caught off guard with changes in the supply chain, whether it be areas of sourcing, flow of goods, or the necessary capabilities landside here. For example, in 2 weeks, we're going to see a real pop on imports as we had predicted towards the end of June. We're going to make sure that we have the necessary land and machinery available, and our skilled workforce at the International Longshore and Warehouse Union is geared up to handle that cargo. At the same time, their productivity has been better than in memory. Ships are averaging less than 4 days in port. The turn times for trucks are now down below an hour, and long aging cargo is at its lowest since we began measuring. The dwell time for the product that moves in and out by truck is less than 3 days. It's the best we've had going in some time. So we need to continue to manage that information flow, continue to share knowledge about policy, the impacts, and the price spikes, while making sure that we do our part to keep the supply chain fluid and keeping that cost exposure for importers and exporters to a bare minimum here.
Gene, thank you so much for the really detailed update. It's been incredibly beneficial. So again,
what a great guest, by the
I
way.
know.
Like, this has been an amazing roster. We
Educational,
had
yeah.
such great guests. Gene, really, you're on the front lines of the global trade story. Really appreciate you joining us on our inaugural show.
Well, thanks for having me in, and keep up the good work. Julie, Craig, great seeing you.
Appreciate it.
So
Thanks,
again,
Gene.
thank you, June Soroka, Executive Director of the Port of Los Angeles. And next, we are going to jump into another SONAR deep dive, where we're going to go through a few SONAR charts with Craig, and we're going to run through a little bit of what's happening in the market.
Yeah, I mean, it's... Hey, welcome back. This is the inaugural episode of FreightWaves Today. Pretty incredible show. We apologize for all the technical difficulties. Getting the time down for a live show, it just takes a lot of work. We're still trying to figure it out. A lot of technical stuff as well as just getting the timing down. So appreciate your patience. We will get better. Before we leave, I want to talk about what we're seeing on SONAR, because I think it's really important to really talk about this. This is a data-driven show, and let's show you right now exactly what we're looking at. So this chart right here is the SONAR NTI. If we could zoom out, I think it would be helpful to actually be able to see on screen what we're looking at. But really, NTI, which tracks the daily spot rates. Daily spot rates are basically what customers are paying in the market on a daily basis. They have reached record highs, 383. We've not seen that. That is an all-time record. Now, keep that in mind. It's happened at the same time that fuel is actually decreasing because there's some noise about resolution, and that has cooled diesel prices, which we're also seeing that. Let's go to the next chart, because I want to show exactly how that looks in terms of what we're seeing in the market, because I think it's really important. But I mean, look at this in terms of where we're at in terms of line haul only. So if we take fuel out of the market, you're actually seeing how what carriers see in terms of cash flow. So without fuel incorporated into the spot rate, this strips it out. You're seeing just how this massive surge has come over the last couple of months. You could see the significance of it. Unfortunately, at the bottom, we've cut off the actual dates, but this is really starting in November. We saw spot rates just absolutely surge, especially when you move fuel out. Let's go to the next chart, which is the diesel truck stop a price per gallon. This is important because this is really what trucking companies, particularly owner-operators, are paying for fuel at the pump. You could see really since the war started, we were at $3.75 a gallon. We're up to $5.54. It has cooled off. There was some expectations that it may stay really high and elevated, but we've seen over the last couple of weeks that actually the cost of fuel is cooling off. It's providing some relief for motor carriers that are buying diesel. Now, one of the important things to note is the wholesale rack market, which is really the bigger carriers go out and do these cost-plus relationships with the fuel stops. What's, I think, important about that is that they are buying fuel cheaper. Let's pull up the ULSD chart, because I think it really shows how this is actually working. What they're doing is they're buying fuel cheaper at the racks, at the wholesale price, and billing out the retail price. And so this is, again, this is basically diesel retail. Let's pull up that ULSD chart if we can back in production. That would be great. Because I think it really shows exactly what we're looking at here. So this is estimated miles per gallon of what companies are paying. Can we go to ULSD? We've got it right here on screen. You can see basically that the ULSD, the wholesale rack price, has cooled off much faster than retail diesel. I've talked about this on X, is that basically as the truck stops get higher surge in fuel prices, they take those rates up immediately. But as the price of fuel comes down, you see it in the wholesale market. We've seen this drop significantly or sizably over the last couple of weeks. It's still not showing up in the wholesale price of fuel, and I think that's important. And if we can show you this, how it looks really on the spread. So we'll pull up the next chart, which is showing the spread between the wholesale price of diesel and the retail price. We can zoom out a little bit. It's easier to see. You can see basically that the spread is at the highest levels, $1.78. That means if you're buying fuel on wholesale prices on a per gallon basis, now there is some taxes and there's some transportation, about 50 cents a mile, but you're buying it at really significantly high discounts. And so what's interesting about that is you're billing out in your fuel surcharge retail prices, but then you're basically being able to buy fuel cheaper. And that is a really significant savings for motor carriers. And that's one of the reasons when Malcolm and I were talking about the savings associated with the market, this is something that motor carriers are going to be able to save significantly, those that buy cost plus relationships, because they're not having to spend as much money on fuel, even though they're able to recover a lot from fuel surcharge. It's an amazing time, Julie. When I think about all the things that are happening, it was interesting talking to Gene earlier because, you know, we're talking about supply chains being right in the middle of stuff. It's a pretty significant time in the market.
Honestly, I love seeing those spot rate charts go up. I love the volatility. I love having things to watch.
But you know, I like to say we have diesel in our blood. Yeah. You come from a trucking asset background. I come from a trucking asset background. And ultimately, I think the truckers, this has been their opportunity. They've lived in the doldrums for the last couple of years. This is an opportunity for them to do much better this cycle. I'm always happy to see market conditions improve. And volumes are coming back as well, as we've heard today about the size of the retail inputs are strong. You know, the Port of LA, they're at strong conditions. Shelley talked about the conditions in her business. It feels like a lot of bullishness today.
Yeah, and it's not just that I only care about truckers. It's just been a long downturn. So I'm really excited to see the market shift and to have a bit of correction happen, right? Natural market correction. We'll watch what happens with fuel, but certainly love watching the rate charts and thinking about how all of these play together. And as we talked about earlier, that Midwest really being an incredibly bullish and strong part of the country right now compared to what we've seen in the last few years. Now talking to Gene and seeing that the port's volumes are getting stronger as well. I'll be excited to see what happens as that volume comes back and capacity continues to exit. But now rather than just being the Midwest, the coasts hopefully will tighten up a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's a sign of retail is doing much better. And the thing that I've learned today is just how strong retail is. And I think that you're seeing it in the import data, you're seeing it in the LTL data. I think that certainly is more bullish than perhaps a lot of people have anticipated. We've known the industrial market has been strong, but I don't know that we realize that retail is doing actually quite well as well.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to continue to watch. So what's one thing you learned from one of our guests today? We touched a little bit about it on the data, but.
I think, look, it was a ton of stuff going on in the market. Look, I think absolutely this has been an amazing inaugural episode. Look, we've had a lot of technical stuff. I think we've got to get our timing down. So appreciate you guys being patient with us. This is a brand new live show format. We are trying to get the kinks out. We appreciate your patience. Studio is going to get a massive upgrade too. We got new equipment, new cameras. I've already got about 10 things that I want to see updated. Here in the show, it's been chaotic. I don't know how much of those got overheard on microphones, but we're all trying to direct stuff live. This is a live show. This is not AI.
We've done it though. We're about done.
We have finished the first show. We had an amazing guest.
We did.
We have some great guests coming up tomorrow. in terms of what our guest tomorrow, this whole week is going to have an amazing set of guests. One thing to keep in mind is that you can get this show daily on the Road Dog Network at 5 p.m. We will also rebroadcast it at 6 a.m. in the morning and 8 a.m. in the morning. So if you missed anything, don't worry. Tomorrow we have the STG. The company has been through a lot. Their CEO will be on. As well, we have Aaron Graff, the CEO of Triumph, will join us. Triumph is obviously a big bank in the business. And it's a big show tomorrow. So we have a lot of work to do, Julie.
We do. But we're excited, and we will see you again tomorrow at noon. Again, we're going to ask that you continue to interact with us. #FW Today on Twitter. Thanks, and see you tomorrow.